Are you happy in your business? Now, I have had my share of emotional ups and downs in my 20 years of being a solo entrepreneur coach. And the patterns I've seen in myself and in my clients is that those downs are usually when I was personally feeling unfulfilled. Sometimes it was because a launch that flopped, and sometimes it was just life and had nothing to do with business. But those ups, oh boy, those are the times when I was feeling my most authentic and completely aligned to my purpose, or when I just felt like I was rocking that work-life balance. I would be thinking I could do this all day long and never feel tired. One of my loves is sharing what works for me and what has been working for my clients to achieve this very feeling, full of passion, happiness, peace, and freedom. So I decided to create a private podcast for coaches. Maybe you just want to develop better communication skills that boosts engagement, leads to better results, and makes you feel like you're actually making a difference in the lives of the people you serve. Then you're invited too. We talk about this and more in the UBU private podcast for coaches. Whether you're a mentor, a parent, or run a client-focused business, coaching skills benefit everyone and anyone who wants to communicate in a way that builds relationships. Fall in love with your life and business again. Click the link in the show notes for your invitation to join us right now. Then come back and enjoy this episode. Hey, difference maker. This episode is a little different. On the surface, this topic might not seem related to personality or to the Enneagram, but your personality wellness is so intertwined with your health wellness, especially in how you fuel your body. I've invited Netta Gorman of the Life After Sugar podcast as a guest host to share a little bit about listening to your body. Now, if you've ever been hangry, you know firsthand how nutrition can create behavioral changes that can make you feel like you've turned into a completely different person, or perhaps exaggerate your anger if that happens to be your emotional yardstick. Well, not only is Netta showing how the core framework that I share in my book works for her business, but she also shares some tips on how to avoid the energy slumps in your day that can make you feel like not yourself. Are you ready to take notes? Let's get started. It's time to stop comparing yourself to others and plug into what is uniquely you. Welcome to Unbox Your Personality, the podcast for coaches, parents, and mentors like you who understand that your happiness makes you more effective at what you do, bringing out the best in others. I'm Jen P. Higgins, personality strategist and Enneagram fluff remover. Get laser focused on who you are and who you aren't, so you're free to make the impact you were born to make. And have fun doing it. Your personality is your business. So let's get down to business. Hello, today I am speaking with Netta Gorman. She is my guest co-host today for the Unbox Your Personality podcast. How are you doing, Netta?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me, Jen. So nice to see you.
I'm excited to have you on. And before we get started, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your podcast?
Okay, so my podcast is called Life After Sugar, and it's really a whole series of interviews and chats with people whose lives have been completely transformed just from reducing and sometimes cutting out sugar, sometimes flour and sweeteners, including yourself, that you're on there as well. And it's not a question of sort of all or nothing or never eating sugar again or anything to do with perfection. It's just that people who I have had the good fortune of interviewing tell how much better they've felt since they cut out what used to be one of their favorite foods, if you can call sugar a food. And it's kind of like that switch from I can never give it up, which was my case as well, to, oh my gosh, I can't believe how wonderful I feel. I haven't given anything up. I just feel better.
I love that. And it really opens up the possibilities of what we can do in our lives just because we feel better, right?
Yes, absolutely. And also this sort of the unexpectedness of it, of not thinking that you would feel better. You think you'd feel worse because you're losing your comfort foods. But it's this unexpectedness of, I never thought I would feel this way. And I don't want to let go of that now.
I love that because that is such a running theme to so many things in our life, especially when it comes to transition or change, that we want to cling to what's comfortable. That's that survival instinct, right? We want to
Right.
cling to what's comfortable, and it doesn't, like, addiction is comfortable, right? Sugar addiction, I should say. It's comfortable, but it is stressful on our bodies.
Right, right. And that comfort is usually a discomfort that we're just gotten used to seeing as being normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we create our new normal, we realize that sugar was kind of covering up a discomfort that's not what feeling good is all about.
Yeah, it's kind of like the story in the book where I'm talking about when I broke my leg, I started overcompensating because it was a long process, a long recovery. And my body started compensating to that new normal of using crutches and favoring my right leg and keeping my left leg straight. That when I was able to finish my recovery, I couldn't bend my knee. My knee would not bend. It literally forgot how to bend. The muscles did. And I continued to favor my right leg because it was more comfortable. It was the stronger one. And then because of all the leaning on my crutches and cane or whatever I was using at the time, it became more comfortable to be hunched over instead of standing upright. It was very, very painful to stand straight. And I had to go through a lot of therapy and chiropractic in order to return to the way I was originally designed to stand.
Yes.
So do you have any advice of how someone would get started or even know, do I need to be paying attention to this?
Yes, I think if you are sort of suffering from energy slumps throughout the day, then that's pretty common and a pretty strong sign that there's something going on. Usually it's not actually a question of energy per se, but of blood sugar spikes and crashes due to what it is that you're actually putting in your body. So as food. So, I mean, my tips would be to first pay attention to your levels of energy. Because sometimes it's quite unconscious. We just think it's normal. So maybe to kind of try and step back and question what you think is normal and what's going on in Wonderland for someone like me and other people that are learning to drop sugar, where there are no energy crashes. That is also normal. So it's like, which normal would you like to have? That's the first thing. And then, if you are suffering from energy slumps, to think, not to look at what am I going to eat to get my energy back, but look behind, what did I eat before, a couple of hours before, that was probably creating this energy slump and blood sugar spike and crash, actually. So a lot of people look at, where's my next snack coming from? And I say, no, look back to what did you eat that is causing, very probably, this energy slump and this slump in your blood sugar level. And if you're eating foods that are high in added sugars, processed grains, so flour, basically, then very probably, and even like dried fruit, which is very, very high in sugar, and liquid sugar, like in sodas and whatnot, and juice even, then very probably those are the kinds of things that are causing the blood sugar spikes and crashes and the energy slumps.
I love that you said, don't think about what you're going to eat to get your energy up, but what did you eat to make it crash? That's one of the first things that I say if I have a headache. I'm like, oh, I have such a headache. What did I eat? Or I'm feeling a little puffy. What did I eat? And my kids will say, my older son, he comes in and goes, Mom, I have a headache. I've already drank water. I've already done
Got a checklist.
exercises. Because there's some neck exercises that I recommend to him. He's like, I've drunk my water. I did my exercises. What else do I need to do? I was like, well, what did you eat? He goes,
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time I ate. Well, maybe you need to eat something.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's like, if people listening are anything like I used to be, it was like, well, if I'm not going to eat my pick-me-ups, my muffin and my energy bar and this and that, then how can I get my energy back? And again, in Wonderland, which is Life After Sugar, which is my business, it's not a question of getting your energy back. It's a question of eating so that you're not lacking energy. You don't get the energy slumps. So good unprocessed proteins and fats, what you need to concentrate on rather than, short term, I've got to get my energy back. If you're eating, unprocessed proteins, meat, fish, seafood, plant-based proteins, eggs, and good healthy fats, like, for example, olive oil, olives, coconut products, coconut oil, all those things, then you're not going to get those blood sugar spikes and crashes that will give you the energy slumps. If your blood sugar levels are steady, your energy levels will be steady.
Are you feeling a bit disappointed that you haven't finished that project yet? Are the kids' schedules impacting your business? Or are the demands of your business affecting your relationships at home? Maybe you need a magic formula for that work-life balance before your fire gets so dim or it completely burns out. I've been there. There was a point in my life where I was juggling 2 businesses and homeschooling and had personal health issues. There was barely time to even connect with myself, much less connect with my husband. When I was finally officially diagnosed with ADHD, I felt like that explained everything. I had a new perspective and started approaching things in a new way. So I created a guide containing 20 tips that I personally use, and they have worked for me for helping me stay on course with my goals. Now, you might not have ADHD, but I bet you can relate to having a million distractions during the day. So if you're ready to stop procrastinating or stop being hard on yourself for missing yet another deadline, self-imposed or not, go ahead and download the guide at powercoachjen.com. If you just find one tip from the list that helps you move forward today, you will be so glad you took the time to read it. Go to powercoachjen.com and download the guide right now. I'm thinking of a story with my hygienist, my dental hygienist. I was just pondering, sitting in the chair going, what did people do back when, before there were hygienists and you had to go to the dentist every 6 months to get your teeth cleaned? Like, did the teeth just fall out? And she said, well, there just wasn't as much sugar in the diet back then. And so there wasn't as much of an issue with, in her situation, cavities, but in your situation, it's overall health with inflammation. And a lot of the times that inflammation can lead to personality changes, which puts a wedge in a lot of our relationships, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yes. And we don't imagine any of that stuff because it's our normal. And we're so used to living with inflammation, living with extra weight and living with the cravings that we can't imagine another type of life without them.
Yeah. It's our perspective.
Yeah. And it was mine as well. Totally.
Yeah. I'm so excited that you have a copy of my book.
Yeah.
Let me know what your first reaction was to it.
Well, what I liked about your book is that it's all about unboxing. For someone like me who has, I guess, I cannot stand feeling like anyone's putting me in a box. So it's my perception, sometimes when I've heard about the Enneagram or any other kind of personality kind of tests or whatnot. All those quizzes in magazines, remember, that we used to do, I've always felt like, don't you tell me who I am. Even if the quiz actually tells me that that's the sort of person I am, but doesn't like to be in a box, I'm like, don't you tell me. And it was the exact same thing when it was, it was suggested to me to stop sugar. Don't you tell me what I can eat or not eat, even if it's for your own good. So that's what attracted me to your book, is that it's unboxing your personality. And that is, you being you. And that is something that I feel matches with who I am.
Yeah. Because I know we've had chats in the past where the same thing has come out. It's like Enneagram, Schminneagram. And really, the message that I want to put out there is that the Enneagram gives us language to connect with people. It's not about putting ourselves in a box, and it's definitely not putting other people in the box, but getting out of that box. And if we can't connect to those pieces inside of us, it's like the whole perception thing. Our body is wired to function a certain way. In particular, for your business, it's not to have so much sugar. Like, we don't function properly under the amount of sugar that we are intaking. And when we exaggerate part of our personality, the way we exaggerate the amount of sugar that we eat, it distorts the way we're actually supposed to live. And the same thing happens when people use the Enneagram to box themselves in and only filter their world through one profile. And so my mission through this book and through the 9 acknowledgement languages is really to get rid of that. Just totally get rid of that. Does it matter what your Enneagram type is? Not really, because it's all within you. But if you really want to step up for that self-awareness, it can give you language and it can give you clues on what is a good path for you. Because a lot of times we can trick ourselves into believing that we're on the right path because it feels good. Just like, oh, I'm going to eat that bagel and oh, it made my headache go away. I feel so much better because I ate a bagel, but that's not true, because later on, the inflammation, my knees are not going to feel better, right? My hips are not going to feel better later on. And so that's a lot of what my message is when it comes to the Enneagram. It's kind of an unpopular mainstream Enneagram view, but I don't really consider myself so much a Enneagram typing coach, which I think a lot of times people associate Enneagram coach with typing, but I'm really a life coach. And I'm helping you integrate the different pieces of your personality so that you can reach your goals. And sometimes it feels counterintuitive, like, okay, my personality is don't tell me what to do, but oh, crap, I need somebody to tell me what to do so I know I know how to eat or I know what to do.
Exactly. And it's that awareness, once we get to a place, which is also why I like your book, it's like once we get to a place of being more aware of our natural personality and the lots of different aspects of it, then we can be more in action mode rather than reaction mode. And that in itself, for me at least, it takes a lot of pressure off myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So what I feel like sets this book apart from all the other Enneagram books that are out on the market is it's not just, people aren't just asking, what type I am. They really want to know, now that I know what type I am, what do I do about it? And the irony is, once you figure out what type you are, now it's time to kind of dissipate that. And let's figure out the other pieces of you in the context of what your core motivation is of your Enneagram type. For example, with me being a type 7, one of my core motivations is to be content, to find joy, to find the happiness. And sometimes that can sound selfish, but honestly, all the motivations are selfish. So in the last part, I introduced the core framework of my business, and it's an acronym. Do you remember that acronym?
The core?
Yeah.
Core acronym? Yeah.
Yeah. I can really see, just based off of past conversations that we've had, that this is a lot of the process, almost a similar process of what you tell people who come to you as far as, what do I do? How do I do this?
Yes, yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think the first step, that check yourself, that sort of awareness so that we can own our feelings. You can't, as you were saying in the book, you can't own your feelings until you're aware of what they are. It's like each step of those 4 of the acronym, they're all dependent on each other.
Yeah.
And you're not going to want to renew your mind until you've actually owned the other steps and then engage your power. It's like, well, you don't know what to do with your power until you've done the other steps. So they're all dependent on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all comes to a head with the very, very first step, which check yourself. And like, it's so easy to say, you need to check yourself. But sometimes people just need a guide and need to know exactly what does that mean? And in the book, the first thing I say is, okay, we're looking at this from a survival perspective. So let's start listening to the messages that your body is giving you. And no, that may not sound like it has anything to do with personality. It may not sound like it has anything to do with the Enneagram, but it has to do so much, because if you can't check yourself and then you can't own your feelings, oh my gosh, what happens whenever we overreact? We'll say, oh, I'm not myself today.
Mhm.
And so if we can't own our feelings, then we're never going to be ourselves, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that I love what you do is you really teach people on how to listen to the body and what their body is telling them as far as nutrition goes. Because I think diet plays such a huge part in how we are able to self-regulate, just from my own experience, but also with my experience with my neurodiverse children and helping them be able to recognize these signs in their body. Like, what are some of the things that you look for? I know it's been a while since you've had sugar. What did you say?
In 6.5 years. I used like an online calculator thingy that calculates the number of days between 2 dates, and it came out to something like 2,352 or something.
That's amazing. It's so amazing. So 2,000 some days ago, what were some of the things that your body was telling you that made you say, hey, I need to pay attention to this?
Yeah. Well, I was constipated and had been for like 15 years, and it was getting worse and worse. I had inflammation and achy joints and athlete's foot and things like that, which I never made the connection between those manifestations, if you will, in my body and inflammation, let alone inflammation and sugar. I knew nothing about the link between those things. And I had extra pounds that, I was having a really tough time getting rid of, and all those kind of things, headaches, lots of different physical manifestations. But the last thing I wanted to do was to feel worse. And for me at that time, if I were to stop eating sugar, that for me meant I would feel even worse. And also I wasn't really aware of what feeling good was. I just didn't know what it was, because my normal was feeling, constipated and inflamed and all the rest of it, in pain. And I think that over and above the actual physical symptoms, what I found from working with lots of people with sugar is that if feeling good, if you don't think you're worthy of feeling good, then you're not going to make any kind of change to get there. Even change that requires you to sort of feel slightly less good for a while before the good kicks in. But one of the biggest stumbling blocks or challenges that people have is not thinking that they are worthy of feeling good, or feeling that it's some kind of selfish, egotistical way of living to put their own well-being first.
But it's so important.
It's so important. But a lot of us as women, and especially mothers, we just fall to the bottom of our priorities. For me, it was like my body had to back me into a corner and give me no other choice but to change something or try something I'd never tried before because I just couldn't carry on like feeling, excuse the pun, but I was just feeling crappy.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I mentioned in the book. That bottom foundation is survival skills. And humans are the only species in the animal kingdom who ignore their survival skills. Like, you feel pain and you just live with it. There's no other animal, no other species in the animal kingdom that does that. They have an instinct to survive. And we as humans tend to ignore that instinct to survive because we're favoring the social needs, that love and belonging, or we're favoring our self needs of self-esteem or self-actualization. We favor those before our survival skills, and that's backwards. And
Right.
so a lot of what the core framework does is bring you back to primitively bring you back to those survival skills of let's listen to our body, because if we are not able to listen to our body, we miss these signals, these red flags that are saying, hey, we're dying over here, by the way. And so I like what you said about people have to change their mind. They need to renew their mind, right? About whether or not they're worthy, and they are, because you can't make an impact in this world if you are not your best self.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really like what you say in chapter 12, I think it is, which it isn't what you do that makes a lasting, meaningful impression. It's who you are that truly impacts people and the world, as much micro as macro. So in other words, it's for me at least, life after sugar is not something I do. It's who I am. And this is what I try to the message I try to send out as well to people who are like, well, no, I don't want to change what I eat and I don't want to lose anything or feel deprived. And it's like, if you put yourself first, that isn't selfish. And even if it was selfish, so be it, you know? And so if the side effect of being selfish in air quotes is that you feel better and in turn everyone else around you feels better, then please go ahead and be selfish.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's a lot of what this inner work is. This personality wellness work is what I do, is helping people with that very same mindset. And just imagine if we all had the mindset to take care of ourselves so that we can fill our cup and then serve other people from our overflow, it would be like world peace.
I know it's like, it sounds a bit hokey, but it's really, it's kind of the basis also of yoga and all those kinds of approaches where look after your own well-being, put your oxygen mask on first, and then you're able to help others. Whereas my experience before I stopped eating sugar was I was totally focused on myself but in another way, not for my well-being, but for just trying to feel good enough. And the vast majority of my energy was taken up by trying not to feel bad. Whereas when I started to feel good and then I went on to feel great, then I had lots of energy left over to help others.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And that's been my experience. I'm not saying that to sort of show off or, but I didn't expect it. I was talking at the beginning about the unexpectedness of life after sugar, as it were. But I mean, that I wasn't expecting the ripple effect of feeling good.
Yes, exactly. That's so perfect, because that's really the message. I believe that's the message that is life, that is what our purpose is for us to be our best selves so that we can bring that to the world so that the world can be a better place, so that we can make a positive impact. And it's not even just to maintain, it's actually to evolve into something that we can't even imagine. Like, We can't even imagine the possibilities if we are not reaching our own potential and our own self actualization, or at least striving to get there. Because the journey is the journey, right? The journey to self actualization is going to make a much, much bigger impact than being stagnant.
Right, absolutely. And it doesn't need to, we don't need to be sitting in a lotus position on top of mountains and, levitating or anything like that to get there, you know? And for some people, yeah, cutting sugar does seem extreme as a ways of getting to feel better. But for me, it wasn't extreme at all. What was extreme was not only the quantity of sugar I was consuming, but what was extreme is normalizing the pain and the physical suffering that I was living, which it was so normalized that even today I could tell you, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, just to bring this back to the Enneagram for just a snippet, one of the images that I have is the ladder and at the bottom of the ladder are unhealthy behaviors, and then the average behaviors, and then the healthy behaviors. And those average behaviors are like the normalized behaviors. And they're the ones that we're not paying attention to. They're kind of off of our radar, just like it's just a habit, right? Eating the sugar. These average behaviors are habitual like that. However, they are hardwired in us, but we get to choose if we're going to use those pieces of our personality in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way. Them by themselves, it's like sugar in a bowl on a table. That is not healthy or unhealthy, but we can choose to eat a healthy quantity of it or an unhealthy quantity of it, however that is defined for you and your body and the dynamics of your own unique physiology. And so that is how I see the Enneagram. Like, you can use it in a good way or you can use it in a bad way. And I'm here to show you how to regulate yourself so that you don't fall into those boxes, and you can step out and rise above your personality and not be limited.
Yeah, because all the talk about healthy and unhealthy very often comes from the outside. So we are being told what is healthy or unhealthy, and the messages that we're bombarded with that to do with healthy, unhealthy, normal, normalized, cravings are normalized now. It's like it's as if society or the marketing messages tell us that it's normal to have cravings, and here are the products that will answer those cravings, and then inanimate objects, like you were mentioning, like sugar, are given moral values like good or bad. And then the way that we're told to eat them, everything in moderation, for example, that's the message I used to believe. And I was sort of that also, I just accepted that without question, that the message of eat everything in moderation, including sugar and flour and all those foods that I now don't eat, that kind of message that is understood to be a healthy way of eating, for me, caused far more harm than good. It was not healthy for me. And being given one message was unhealthy. The message, not the message itself, but applying the message as a one size fits all was unhealthy for me. Not the message itself, not what it was applied to, but the fact that there was no wiggle room for any kind of a range of personalities. It didn't fit me. And I never questioned the fact that it didn't fit me until I did. And then I rejected it outright.
Kind of sounds like me in my autism journey with my son, where everything was, even though we were saying, if you've seen one child with autism, you've seen one child with autism, all of the literature and all of the resources and the help out there felt like one size fits all. And it just didn't fit us. And if I may say, it didn't fit my personality. And the message was, if I could not parent him in this particular way, then I was going to be struggling. I was going to be struggling later on. Well, I was already struggling. I was already struggling, and I needed a way to be present in myself so that I could be present for him as a parent. And I couldn't do that by neglecting what came naturally to me. That actually caused more stress, which probably led to more inflammation than the original issue.
And it's so freeing to be in the presence of something like your book, yourself, and hopefully what I also kind of help people to do, which is to find our own way of functioning, of being aware, of owning our feelings and all those core values, so that it's more responsibility in a way, because you're not being told, your hand is being held, but you are also being encouraged to find your own way. And some people don't like that because it seems heavy for some people, whereas for me, it's freeing. So that in itself, I know people who need to weigh and measure their food and make sure that, they have 3 meals a day, no more, no less. And those kinds of rules for me would be unhealthy in the sense that I wouldn't have much fun doing them. But for them, it's total freedom to do that, and so be it. I mean, it's what I got from your book is find what's good for you and go all in.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's my personality, interpreting what you're saying. But for me, that is something that's really hugely important. And in terms of nutrition, not that I'm a nutrition expert in any way, but in terms of nutrition, it's something I feel is often missing in so-called sort of official messages about what healthy eating is.
Yeah. We just want to say, you be you.
Right. And it's a bit like saying, stop eating sugar. It's easy enough to say. It's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
But then that brings up the question, well, how? How do I do this? How do I be myself? How do I just stop eating sugar? It's not that easy. As you say in your book, simple doesn't mean easy.
Yeah. And growth is almost always difficult. It's hard. It's the hard path.
Yes. Which is why it's totally understandable that we would take the messages, the one size fits all messages, and go with that, because the alternative is having to think for ourselves, having to make an effort, having to be more aware, and sometimes you just don't want to.
Mm-hmm. And the irony is, those are the birthing pains. Those are the labor pains that actually get us to the treasure, that actually give us the gift of, birth, of rebirth, of going, oh, this is the much better new normal that I've wanted. This requires so much less effort now that I'm on this side of the labor pains. And we shy away from that because of wanting to avoid the pain or avoid the impact or avoid just the effort. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I've been a teacher for 30 years. Any type of learning and change requires effort and discomfort, a certain level of discomfort. I teach languages. So if you're learning a new language, first of all, you don't understand what's going on in the other language, and then gradually get some words and put them together, create sentences, and gradually, you understand more and more until you're fluent. But I mean, that is a long process, longer for some than for others. And that discomfort of not really understanding what's going on and not being competent, that is part of learning.
So in the first part of chapter 4, the story is about me going to Greece and with a map that was in English and trying to translate, just the words that were on the map, and then translating the symbols, the Greek symbols that were on the street signs. And it was literally like, this is Greek to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny you should mention that, because we spent, 3 months in Europe in 2019, of which just a couple of weeks in Athens. And it was the exact same thing. And my husband's an engineer. He teaches math. And he was like, I know the symbols. I just don't know what they mean, all bunched up together on a menu.
Exactly. That was exactly my experience, because being a math major, also in a sorority where, I'm just used to seeing the Greek symbols. And then I went and took Greek after that because it was like, I don't want to be in that situation again. I'm gonna learn from this. And now it's kind of hard for me to look at Greek symbols and not pronounce them.
Yes. Yeah. And now we've got COVID with all the Greek letters to help us out.
That's right. What are we on? Omicron?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what we'll do once we get through the whole of the alphabet.
Let's hope we don't get that far.
Shucks.
So this has been so enlightening, Netta. I certainly appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts with me.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful talking to you.
I hope Netta's perspective and story is as impactful for you as it was for me. I got remotivated to cut out sugar, which was something that I've kind of slacked on in the last 2 years during the pandemic. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's usually day 3 that's like that peak Hulk moment where I just kind of want to smash everything. And so what I've done is I've coached myself through the core framework to get a strategy game plan ready for that day 3. Now, I know abstaining worked for Netta, but I also know that in the past that has completely caused more stress for me and my personality. And I've also learned that I have to be very specific about the rules for, quote, cheat days, starting with not calling them cheat days, but calling them treat days instead. And that just really soothes my type 7 soul. Now, this is what it looks like to work with your personality instead of against it. Whatever it may be in your life where you feel stuck, if you need some hand-holding, but at the same time you want to be encouraged to find your own way, a way that's aligned with your personality and is healthy for you, you have got to get on the communication list for the grand opening for Unbox University. The early bird offers will only be for you who are on the list. Life is too short to invest in cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all programs. So go ahead and visit go.unboxenneagram.com/grand. It's in the show notes. And then go stock your inbox for the specials that are going to be coming your way very soon. The grand opening starts February 22nd. You are meant for so much more than what you are settling for. That's what you're going to unbox in yourself so that you can unleash your power. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing the Unbox Your Personality podcast. To learn more about yourself, go to powercoachjen.com. Find out how you are different so you can make your difference.
I think I know what to say. Do you want me to practice, or do you trust me to say
I trust you.
Was I on your podcast?
This 2 weeks ago.
Was I? Oh, I never.
On the finale.
I never got a notification or anything.
I sent it to your...
No, I mean from the podcast player. And
it would have been the season 1 finale. I think that's when you were out of town.
Oh, look, you're on my phone.
I might take some video snippets, just very small, like 1-minute snippets. You look gorgeous. Don't worry. You have on more clothes than I do. I'm still in my PJs. So how would we close that up? I think we've just been saying bye.
Okay, carry on then. Well, I'll say, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Like, how have we been outroing that? I'm not really sure.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me, yeah.